So we'll move on. So our next panelist is an influential entrepreneur, wealth creator, a Pan-African employer with a diverse portfolio across oil and gas, agriculture, manufacturing, and logistics. As the group managing director, she leads several businesses, including Nepal Energies, Sorties Logistics, Alexis and Aldan, and other portfolio companies. Known for her impact philanthropy, she founded the PA Anyaso Skill Acquisition Center and the Ngozi Ekeoma Foundations, empowering over 2,000 women and youth through skills training. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly assist me in welcoming Barrister Ngozi Ekeoma, the General Managing Director of Nepal Energies. We are so delighted to have you here with us, Ma. Our next panelist is Mr. Ogbugo Ukoha. He is the executive director of Distribution Systems, Storage and Retailing Infrastructure. And he has 26 years of experience, beginning at PPMC, NNPC, and includes expertise in petroleum regulation, legal practice across the energy value chain, and board-level executive management. He oversees the technical and commercial regulation of Nigeria's downstream petroleum industry. He is focused on enabling Nigeria's transition to gas, advancing industry automation, diversifying distribution infrastructure, and implementing the national strategic stock. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, please help me welcome Mr. Ogbugo Ukoha. We're so delighted to have you in our midst, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Ahmad Damcida. He is the founder and principal of Folti Technologies Limited, a transportation and technology service provider. With nearly 20 years of experience, he has led projects in energy, mining, transportation, agro-processing, project finance, and commodities trading. Ahmad has worked with organizations like the Center for Global Energy Studies and Emirates Liquefied Gas and Oil Limited. He serves on the boards of 9 companies and is a recognized mentor and subject matter expert. He has contributed to over 50 energy projects, including power plants, gas processing, pipelines, and modular refineries, working with clients such as Shell Global Solutions, Afreximbank, Ustar, PwC, and Seplat NNPC across sub-Saharan Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please receive Mr. Ahmad Damcida. We are honored that you could make the time to be in our midst, sir. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is one we have already been introduced to, but for the sake of those who were absent at the time, I will introduce him again. He was very, very insightful and delightful to have on the previous panels with profound insight. All right, so his name is Mr. Michel Ussene. He's a leading Mozambican investment expert. He is the chairman of Black Cheetah, an investment and private equity firm specializing in finance, energy, real estate, and FMCG. His firm attracts global investors through a rigorous screening process tailored to risk and return expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, for the second time today, please let's welcome Mr. Michel Ussene. I believe Mr. Michel Ussene will join us later on. All right, over to you, Mr. Ejike.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is my second edition for today. But I'm very, very proud and honored to be anchoring this session. I'm sat here with leaders in one of the most important industries in our country and our continent. You know, and you cannot overemphasize the importance of energy in every single thing that we do. You know, just like I've spoken about finance as a catalyst for growth, energy is the key to us transforming our continent. So you're very welcome. Just to start off the conversation, if panelists can just share your perspective on energy security, you know, and what you're doing in your very elevated positions within the industry to ensure the energy security of our country and of our continent for the benefit of our SMEs and the generations to come.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for the invite and for having me. I would like to say this before I make my contribution. I would like to congratulate Ussene for job well done. And I would like to say to her that you choose a topic that depletes you. That is in resilience, because you have shown a lot of resilience in making sure that you continue the mentor match-up program. I personally tried to discourage her. So let me confess. So walking into this place today, I got very teary because she had pulled through regardless of how we try to discourage her. So Ussene, congratulations, and thank you for proving me wrong again. Having said that, talking about the topic, which is energy security as catalyst to industrial resilience. When we talk about energy security as catalyst to industrial resilience, we simply are saying that without energy, you cannot actually build or have industries running at a cost that is efficient enough to bring the prices affordable to the general masses. That's on a very simple term. So what do we, how do we, using energy, or how should energy mix be in order to bring this value? One, I believe that we should have multiple, if you're talking about energy security, you should have multiple sources of energy. You should have the solar, the hydro, the wind, the fossil fuel. You should have all the mix so that if one fails, the other one can continue. So for me, that is number one. If you're talking about security, security cannot be based on just one source. It has to be multiple sources. So let me stop at that and allow the rest to add to the conversation before I continue. Thank you.
Yeah, so the question is how is your organization, especially as a regulator, as our father in the sky, essentially, you know, how are you ensuring energy security for the country and by extension the continent?
So thank you very much, moderator, for a very profound presentation that you made earlier on. Just like my sister said, started off with, I think it would be foolhardy if I do not start by saying, for those who are being mentored, I don't think we should speak much on this panel. If the theme is resilience, I'll just simply want to recommend to them that when they look at Ezinne, as the mother said, what you find is the profound definition of what resilience is. It's not just about putting this event together as a platform for harvesting of ideas, but is in the face of headwinds, that character demonstration that until we achieve it, we will not stop. And it's something that is exemplary, and it's something I'd like to recommend to everybody who is here. And that's the only kind of thing that can take Nigeria to the next level. And so I'll join in commending Ezinne for putting together this event. And I really, really mean it. It comes straight from my heart. Thank you very much. Yeah. So what I have described that she's achieved today, and she will continue to achieve, also reminds me of the kind of work we do. Without energy security, I doubt that any other industry would even be able to thrive. The headache we bear as regulator is that having an eagle's eye view of all the puzzles, I can know when we're going to have some gap or challenge weeks or months before you begin to experience it. And so for us in the back end, we continue to work day and night, even in our dreams. Sometimes try to make sure that all the moving parts come together, especially within the constraints and the operating environment that we have to work through. There's a lot that can be spoken about energy security. For the Nigerian government, is a national priority. Is a national priority. That's the only time also you will find even the security agencies very involved once that there's a risk to the energy security. And we're hoping that sooner than later, with more diversity, with the energy mix and becoming much more robust, that we'll get to that point where energy poverty is eradicated in Nigeria. That's the long-term outlook. And I can share with you, as we proceed today, some of the efforts we're doing in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ejike, and thank you very much, sir. So you laid the foundation alongside Barrister Mrs. Ekeoma. For me, energy security basically can be looked at from different points. Our contributions have been more around diversifying the energy. So if you look at what we've done over the last 5 years, for example, is to see our business contribute to segments of the energy industry from both the infrastructure side to the process systems. And this is based on our involvement in the electricity, the natural gas processing, and certainly the renewables as well. We've even extended that now by having to offer transportation as a service using electric vehicles. Now, in a country like Nigeria where the dynamics keep changing, not because there isn't a plan or anything, no, but because human transformation is at a faster pace than almost everywhere else in Africa. And why is this so? So if you look at adoption rate in Nigeria, if you look at the CNG auto mobility usage or the auto gas usage, the drive started with full force in maybe 2020. This is barring the fact that 2006 was the initial CNG launch. But by 2020, when the drive started, when the government created policies around it, to date, you can see the adoption rate. You know, it's going far beyond what is projected to achieve, despite the economic crisis. Now, so we see that Nigeria is a platform for early adoption of new things and also the ability to diversify, energy sources. If you look at the renewables, So personally, I've been on solar panels for maybe 12, 13 years now. And a lot of people are gradually looking at it that way. Even our vehicles, for example, we charge them with 95% renewables. We only take one hour of grid power in a day, which we store in batteries. And once we store in batteries, we use that to charge the vehicles, and then the solar panels over our carports continuously top up the batteries that will now be used to charge our vehicles. So in terms of contribution to energy security, we have basically championed the diversification itself. We've championed the mix. We've also led conversations and effort around developing projects in natural gas. So if you look at the virtual pipeline system that's existing, we actually championed that in 2018, I think, or so. This is after only three parties producing CNG in Nigeria, or compressing CNG gas in Nigeria at the time. We championed the small-scale LNG, which Greenville eventually developed, and now GLNG is developing. Axela is developing, but we championed it. We were the ones who did the study for the market, supported by the US government, USTDA, and that has now become commonplace in Nigeria. So I guess this contribution is enough. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Very insightful. I believe that when we speak about energy security, specifically thinking about our continent and what's happening today with the demographic boom that we are living, there is a lot of things that we need to think about. First of them, it's what are the sources of energy that we have in Africa and that we can push and develop them for the benefit of our people. We know that there is a huge trend in the world on the transition, but also we need to look on what are the resources that we still have in Africa in abundance that we can use to develop energy security. We look at countries large like South Africa. Before the World Cup, they already had load shedding. Up to today, they still have load shedding. We look at countries such as populated like Nigeria that still don't have an interconnected grid and proper IPP production to supply the whole need that the people require. But also you look at countries like Ethiopia. But in a very positive way, we also see a very positive trend in energy security by the regional integration of power grids. In Southern Africa, you have the Southern Africa Power Pool, and this integration is growing on the developing of infrastructure, high voltage connectivity between countries. You see the development of the power plant in Ethiopia, which now is the largest power plant in Africa, done by funds from Africa, from the local people. We see Angola today that has a surplus on hydropower. So we need all of these sources of power that can bring industrial production. Because a lot of time we think on energy security on the perspective of putting a light or a fridge. But we cannot develop our people only by putting a light and a fridge. We need to put machinery to work. We need to make smelters. We need to produce steel. We need to put railway infrastructure. We need to be able to put goods to transfer one country to another by rail being powered by light, by electricity. So those are the conversations that we need to put on the table when we talk about energy security. Is how are we going to pay for the infrastructure? Because producing power is expensive. Transferring power, it's expensive. Distributing power, reliable power with quality, is not also cheap. And we need to bring private sector, and we need to bring public sector, and we need to bring the DFIs together. But there is a huge opportunity in business in terms of what we can do to reach the energy security that we need in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michel. So I think Michel just opened up the entire conversation, by going into, the breakdown of energy mix across the continent. So this session here, or this event, is really targeted at SMEs. And the SMEs really care about, one, whether it's diesel or petrol, which they are using to power their activities. Now, on the other side, as they start to scale, they also now care about the things that Michel is talking about, which is cheaper sources of power, more sustainable power. In terms of the downstream side, what are you seeing in terms of the trends of how the market is consolidating, for Nepal, for instance, to grow even bigger, to supply more volumes into the markets, whether it's on the petroleum side, or whether it's on the petrol or the diesel or the fuels that locals, use?
Okay, first of all, let me speak a bit about the dynamics of our business, as it is. Before, you had a regulated environment and you have subsidies, right? So most people were using PMS-powered generators for small businesses. Most SMEs were using PMS-powered generator because you had subsidies on the PMS, not on the HU. So after the removal of subsidies, we have seen consumption drop on the fuel side. So I'm sure our regulator would also concur to this. So we have seen people moving away from using those generators to probably converting them to CNG. And a lot of people have gone into solar as well because it's cheaper to run on solar. For instance, our gas stations, for us, we have even started, converting most of our pumps and all the utilities that we need on a daily to run the gas station into using solar. Okay, so and we've seen consumption drop, in terms of what we consume. So we also see it drop in terms of what we are also selling. So this only makes an entrepreneur such as us to have a rethink as to how you go about doing your business, or what new markets what you want to develop moving forward. And for us, we are looking serious. We're already doing gas already, and we are looking seriously into conversions, because people are going to be forced to look for cheaper sources of power. For SMEs, they are the ones that are the worst. They are the ones worst hit with lack of power, because the guy that is a tailor, or the guy that is, people make daily living just by having a power thing where they charge people's phone on the go and all that, and they use fuel-powered generator. So a lot of things are coming into will come into play, and us as a business, we are also strategizing and seeing ways and means, because it's real. We can see the numbers are beginning to come down, both on the volume and on the volume and on the margins. So we are actively engaging, actively looking at the market, actively, looking for partners in some of the other energy mix to bring into what we do currently to continue to be relevant in the market. But let me comment on what Michel had also said, because I don't know if this microphone will come back to me. And that is on using our resources to empower ourselves or to create the energy mix. And Ejike, you said it in your vision and your mission, that is using African resources to create African wealth. I know that a lot of people have talked about moving away from fossil fuel and going into like electric, solar and other energy mix. But we cannot forget the fact that we still have a lot of these resources that has not been developed. And nobody's going to develop it for us. We have to develop it for ourselves. And you cannot leave what is in your backyard and start looking for what is not in your backyard. Like Nigerians will say, what do you look for? Sokoto, de your Shokoto. So you cannot, we have to use these resources. And I'm happy that Afrexim Bank is has been encouraging. I saw the deal that went in Angola, an Angola energy company acquiring a stake in Galp and all that kind of a thing. So we have to look inwards. And that brings us to, when the foundation that you laid about our pension or what we're using our pension for. Because we see a lot of the IOCs moving away from financing new explorations. They are moving away from there. They're going to, more environmental friendly energy mix. But we still have this energy. We have a lot of gas inside our ground, our land. We have a lot of crude. So we must tap into that and use our resources to create wealth for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next, onto our regulator. Faced with reduced consumption of PMS, confusions about we have a refinery, massive refinery now, and this is what many SMEs here are thinking. What should we really expect, as Nigerian businesses, working, earning money by the day, where the largest expenditure is energy? What should we expect? Should we expect prices to drop? Should we expect stability in supply? What should we look forward to?
Okay, so it is true that with the full deregulation of the market, we've seen a massive reduction in volumes of white products, particularly PMS. So moving from prior to May 29th of last year, 66 or thereabout million liters a day consumption, we're beginning to see in the last few months below 50 million liters on the average every day. What does that represent for all of us as a trend? In addition to that reduction in volume, there's also an increasing transition from the traditional white products to a high demand for gas and its derivative, something to also note. Thirdly, is that we also will recognize the migration from an import-based supply system to one that has installed in-country additional refining capacity, and which represents progress by any measure, represents progress. And the regulator continues to work with those potentials to grow them to the point where they are stable and optimized. And this is just economics 101. With increased supply, we will also see stability in pricing and more energy security. But we're speaking to the SMEs today. Let me just extend these highlights to how it applies to the SMEs that we see. First of all, I would like to encourage them. Their own energy supply sources, they need to align with the changing landscape. Why use AGO at 1,000 Naira plus when you can get natural gas at a quarter or thereabout of that same price. Yes, the initial capital outlay may be high, but over time, you would find that your overhead will reduce drastically if you can convert to any of those. And that includes our cars and all. But not just what your overhead is, but I also see a lot of opportunities for SMEs in the space, in the emerging space. Yesterday, I was at Apapa Jetty inspecting a number of new projects. And as I'm becoming used to, and this is just by way of example, you would not believe that the massive welding work that is going on is outsourced to expatriates. Because, yes, because there are certifications that are required for those very sensitive infrastructure. But isn't that something that we should all be able to provide here if we dedicate our energies to it? And as I went through those new projects yesterday, I could just see massive opportunities for small and medium enterprises here. The country is talking about conversion, huge opportunities for exploitation by anybody who would like to go into that. You've talked about the refinery. If you go to ARA in Netherlands, the economies that exist side by side refineries are huge potentials for any SME. Last week, Tuesday, we were in Port Harcourt to see to the restreaming of the Port Harcourt refinery. If you'd been there many years ago when it was functional, you will understand what I mean about secondary economies that develop around there. And these are opportunities I would like to recommend for the industry. You don't need a huge capital outlay to deal with this, but it's just focused, laser-focused attention, and you build your capabilities within a very narrow distance. And SMEs have a competitive advantage of being very nimble, and they can adjust as the market dictates. So it's something that I would like to encourage, especially the young ones here. There are huge opportunities, technology. Even with Madame, if we're sitting down talking about costing efficiencies, she will feel the pinch. But I bet you the next generation are quicker to recognize the solutions to those. And I can go on and on saying to the young people, there's a huge opportunity for everybody here around this table. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And I think we're going to take you up on that. I'm sure that we would want to have some more insight into those opportunities and how how 234 Finance can help, guide some SMEs in that direction. In the presentation, I spoke about the right type of SME, and I think that's what you're referring to. People doing welding, and it will shock you how much they're making. Welding. Just to come to you, Mr. Damcida, the energy culture, has been known for innovative, structuring and approaches within the energy space. So given the opportunities that are arising from this dislocation or transition, so to say, that is happening within our market here in Nigeria at least, it's happening across the continent, but Nigeria is a massive market. What opportunities do you think that you can put together for SMEs to participate in, which will come with financing and also with structuring and direction, so that the gains of, this policy change would be felt by SMEs?
Thank you very much, Ejike. So let me give an overview, then would now narrow down to how SMEs can participate. And by the way, Michel, we have the West African power pool as well, so we're very much integrated. Now, across Africa today, there should be no reason at all for one to buy a flight ticket from here to Accra. There shouldn't be a reason. Why? Because the distance is just an hour. Okay? What we would have done in terms of integration and having to support SME businesses is to introduce an electrification system that would power a rail from Lagos all the way to Accra, right? Because we have the West African gas pipeline, right? Which already goes through all the West African countries and terminates after Accra, right? So SMEs would have maybe 40 or 50% of their costs come down, because a lot of people leave Lagos and go to Accra almost twice a week just to do business. And today, I think the tickets are between 450 to 700,000. Yeah, with an electric rail line, you shouldn't pay more than 50 to 100,000 naira. You shouldn't, right? So that's one. And how do we finance this? I know earlier during your presentation, you talked about, the need for our pension funds to invest in dollar denominated, transactions. Of course, the laws don't allow that, but how people are doing it today is that you have institutions like InfraCredit taking pension money from our system and now investing in dollar denominated projects. You also have the sovereign wealth funds. So if you look at between Nigeria to Ghana, you have 4 sovereign wealth funds. They have a total capital base of about $2.2 billion. Now, what do these guys do? They have decided to focus on buying their own government treasury bills and doing some other projects that basically have not attained that scale that will support their SMEs. If these guys come together and finance an electric rail system to connect Lagos to Accra, right, their SMEs would boom. Because one thing that would encourage SMEs to grow fast is if they are able to produce and export. So if you look at the Taiwanese model or the Chinese model, a lot of the things we order on Alibaba and all of that are manufactured by SMEs. But what the governments have done is to subsidize the energy that supports production. And I know the regulator now mentioned that they're supporting, things like refineries, and the demand is now, coming down and all of that. Yes, but you see, if you have a refinery in Nigeria that is depending on Bonny Light as the source of crude to support its refining operations, you cannot sell that product at an affordable rate. I'll tell you why. Because the Bonny Light is trading at a premium to the Brent, right? So if we want to support SMEs, we should allow those refineries to import the crude that they can refine and sell at cheaper rates to make sense. Because our crude is too expensive for refining and subsidizing, right? That's one. Another thing again, you should look at in supporting SMEs is when you import solar panels into the country to support your renewable energy projects, or you import anything relating to the renewable energy systems, the bottlenecks you face, right? If the governments, and this is not only Nigeria, it's across the entire Africa, right? Including Rwanda, that has an ease of doing business index that's, more positive, right? You still have those bureaucracies. I mean, one person moves from, and they will tell you, well, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement has allowed a borderless trade. Trade without infrastructural integration is a problem, right? If I'm going to trade with people in Uganda today or Zambia, for example, how do I send my goods there, right? There isn't road network that leads there. I have to come out and ship from Apapa and then go to Kenya, drop at the port of Mombasa, then transport by rail or by road for another 1,000 kilometers. How the hell would these guys make money, right? So for SMEs to grow and thrive, governments have to integrate not just by mindset or trade, but integrate by forcefully investing in the infrastructure that ties the economies together. Power gets exported from Nigeria to into the West African power pool today. We export almost, maybe 500 to 800 megawatts of electricity, right, today, right? Now there's a cap. But internally, we're not able to consume that electricity. And the simple reason why we're not able to consume the electricity is because we don't have the infrastructure that would contain it and distribute effectively. So why don't you do this? Why don't you break down these systems into piecemeal and have your local people do the fabrication? Because if you look at your electric cables, everything that you use, you have to import them. In fact, and this is entire Africa. You have Copper Belt in Zambia. You have Katanga in Congo. You have, I think, in Ghana as well, you have now all those mineral resources where you have cobalt, copper, lead, everything relating to the cables, the aluminiums are on this continent, including lithium. But we enjoy importing the finished product. And that mentality needs to shift until we are able to produce locally, because that localization of production is what generates SME activity around, facilities. Thanks, Ejike.
No, I think we have. Thank you so much. I think we have an interesting conversation forming here, and we're going to bring it to a close soon. But it's an interesting conversation, because you wonder, do we have the capacity, to process and to develop and all these things, I want to take it to Michel very quick and just let him contribute to this conversation, because Michel comes from an interesting market, Mozambique, where very similar to Nigeria, yeah, very similar to Nigeria, but they're also very import-driven, a lot of ground to cover in establishing local content. And we in our own analysis of Mozambique that the team had done at Moneda, we believe that the solution for Mozambique's own transformation is in African content, because every import comes without capacity, and the only way to change that is maybe an African solution. So what do you think about that, Michel? And how has it played out so far in terms of integrating African participation within your market?
So we, being from Mozambique, we are blessed because we are neighbors of the largest power consumer in the continent, which is South Africa, and also is the biggest power producer in the continent. But they have a large problem in the last 20 years, and many factories had closed, many people had to stop activities because simply they did not have enough power stability. Now, Mozambique is one of the countries that has largest reserves of natural gas. This is close to the border between Mozambique and Tanzania. So it's about 3,000 kilometers to South Africa. But Mozambique has been exporting natural gas for about 15 years now, 15 years time, from the south of Mozambique to South Africa, to Sazelburg. So basically all the petrochemical that South Africa has, the feedstock come from Mozambique through a 700 kilometers pipeline. Now, these gas fields are going to lower production in the next 2-3 years' time. And this will enable the possibility to build a gas pipeline from the huge fields that Mozambique has in the north up to South Africa, and will be able to feed Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, DRC, Botswana, South Africa, and Eswatini. Similar to the project you guys have from here up to Europe. But the difficult thing with our African leadership is a lot of things that could make sense don't happen. And often we come to this conference and we realize that we all dream the same, but at the end of the day, nothing happens. 2 or 3 days ago, China and Russia announced that the new pipeline, gas pipeline, it's called East Gas Pipeline, that connects Russia to China and takes about 38 billion cubic meters of gas per annum, is already in function, was commissioned. And this is about 5,100 something kilometers. Now, this gas pipeline that's coming all the way from Russia go up to Shanghai. And in between, 450 million people will benefit on this. There is another pipeline called the Siberian pipeline that was commissioned some years ago, but the pipeline was so costly that they had to make a deal of $400 million for 30 years to make it viable. Now, what happened with ourselves? We know that we need to do with this infrastructure. It's a need. It's not a conversation. Many people are coming. We don't have the right infrastructure. If we use the gas that we have, Nigeria has the biggest reserve of gas in Africa. If we use our gas, monetize our gas, produce power, industries could come, lights in house will be. The transport will lower price maybe to half or 1/3. But the main problem that we have in Africa is not people from abroad, it's ourselves. And sometimes we get emotional when we speak about this because we see what we could do and we don't do. So in the case of Mozambique, we understand this, but we still have several divisions among our neighboring countries to come together to be shareholders in the same project, bring security to the project, funding and develop for the benefit of our people. So we end up sitting down and say we could have done and nothing had happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Michel. I think we also have very similar experiences in projects that need to happen, but just haven't happened. And we hope that as we move forward, we would have more luck and more opportunities to change it. But very quick, if we can have 1 minute each to just share closing statements of what we would like to say to the SMEs in the room, to the investors in the room, and any other message that we may have.
From all the conversations that have been going on in this room, one can easily see the role of government in developing more SMEs and empowering more SMEs to grow. And I say this because if you talk about policies as to how our pensions ought to be used, you are talking about government. If you talk about infrastructure development, even if those infrastructural developments is going to be taken up by private sector, government has to concede to it. So regardless of on which side that you're talking about development of SME. By the way, let me say congratulations to all the SMEs and all the people that are thriving even in the very difficult business environment all across Africa. So that's congratulations to you. You're doing so well in given all the conditions that we find ourselves. Congratulations. So back to what I'm saying. So when you gave yours, somebody asked the question, how do we contribute to the agitation or to making governments react to us? It was a young person. And I want to say to that person is social media, you already have the platform. Keep putting it there. Our pension needs to go towards empowering SMEs rather than one government, wherever, will take it and they go and use it and do whatever, and they are not putting it in the right places that it will actually impact the right people. So we can keep talking about this in our social handle, we can keep making, one day it might go viral, and then the government official might look at it, and then the conversation can start from there. So however you look at it, there's a huge, huge role that government must play in order to make our SMEs better, more empowered, and more thriving. I want to also say that Ahmad talked about us building so many things here. You cannot build what you don't know. Our people, it's easier for them to just import, and for us to build, we have to know. For us to know, there has to be an intention, and it has to be intentional. Somebody must pass that knowledge to the person that is going to build. So we say it, but how are we passing the knowledge? So this is something that also policies has to be put in place that ensures, just the same way we have done with the local content program in Nigeria, where today we see local companies doing exploration, having blocks and producing oil. Before, it wasn't this way. It was international companies, IOCs, that were doing this thing. But there was an intention for this to happen, and it happened. So it has to be with across board, every other thing that we're trying to produce in Nigeria. It cannot just be, we can produce it. If I can produce it, then somebody has to be trained and has to know how to do this thing. So this also is something that government has to be intentional about it. Private sector also have to be, all of us have to be intentional, especially with government policy. It forces us to now do these things the right way, so that in the next couple of years, you would find out that, you know, we are passing knowledge and people are beginning to do these things here in our continent. I mean, I've had opportunities of visiting a lot of African countries. I can assure you Nigeria is better in terms of the locals participating in what is happening. Most of the African countries I've visited, it is all, their vibrant industries are handled by foreigners. Most of their vibrant, what we call energy, even as little as even trading that everybody in Nigeria is doing, imports that everybody, most of it are handled by international company. And this ought not to be. So there has to be a lot of collaboration. Let us export what we know now to our neighbors, to all the other African countries, because we know how to do these things. There's no need for you to bring what Nigerians call Oyibo to come and do it. Africans, we can do it. And it's only when we collaborate, when there is, what is it called? When there's collaboration within us as Africans, can we achieve more mileage in empowering our people, especially our SMEs. Thank you.
Absolutely. So are you going to support African integration on the marketer side?
So my sister has closed by challenging government to do more. I would like to tweak that a little bit and say that today's focus is on SMEs, and everywhere in the country that the economy is developed, SMEs remain the engine room for transformation. And I would like to share with them and leave with them the optimistic picture I have of the future, and hope that they can align with that and they will find some inspiration and opportunities in the economy. So I encourage the SMEs to look at, just take narrow streams of the industry, you know, segments. Don't take a large, and just specialize within those niches, and you will find that you will contribute and your returns on investments will be very, very huge. So thank you very much again.
When you finish, so tell me, it's a closing remark, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
So for me, I would always point finger at government all the time, and also the regulator, right? So I would point fingers because they are the people who can make the difference. SMEs, for some reason, on the African continent generally have lost hope in government policies. So they don't even read those policies. But the solutions to some of the problems or challenges SMEs face are in those policies. I think by cultivating a culture of having to read through policies and rebuilding trust in our governments, we will be able to solve a lot of the problems or the challenges that we face. Now, if you look at what has been happening, and I'll talk about Nigeria and even South Africa maybe, so if you look at Nigeria, there's the body called SMEDAN. And SMEDAN basically is a government entity that's meant to support SMEs across different segments of their maturity. Now, outside this, there's another body called the Industrial Training Fund, which is meant to train people to become ready for the workplace in terms of skill acquisition and so on and so forth. All of these are to de-risk some of the early stages that SMEs go through in their business maturation. But because a lot of SMEs don't have faith in government, they haven't taken time to look at the policies. Just about maybe 3-4 months ago, there was a policy that came out called SUPA. SUPA, S-U-P-A, it's an acronym that stands for Skill Up Acquisition, Artisan Skill Acquisition. Now, what does this do? It's actually monies that all companies in Nigeria contribute into the Industrial Training Fund. It's 1% of your payroll that you contribute that is used now to support the artisans. Now, these artisans are basically the foundation of SME businesses. Why? Because we depend on us artisans as SMEs to actualize our vision and business processes. So you get a carpenter, you get a welder, you get all of these people. Now, but when you get them, you still spend money to train them. Ideally, you're not meant to spend that money. So that money is a cost that you have put onto yourself because you've refused to look at the government policy. So if you go through that policy and the policy database, you'll find out that those skills you're looking for, government has already trained them, and people are there on standby for you to, just go with your shopping list and look for the welders, the carpenters, and everybody that are already trained. Now, the training, because of the fact that we don't have faith in government, you might think the training is, below par or suboptimal. No, a lot of the time, the training is actually serious. Right? So I think we should start to build more faith in government, and government should also start to give SMEs and other parties within the business environment the need to trust them. Because trust on the African continent is almost zero for business to government. Now, this is not to say that government has not supported businesses, but government has no other job than to ensure that these people that pay taxes are supported to the level where their tax generation becomes sustainable, right? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
From my side, I would like briefly to say that, first of all, coming here and seeing so many people from several countries, give me a lot of faith in the future of Africa, in the future of our continent. Each one of us, we have our own struggles. Please don't give up. If you are starting your company, don't give up. If you're in the middle of the fight, don't give up. Go forward. Let's do joint ventures. If we don't have enough strength, look in other African countries. You can find good people, good companies, join together. Sometimes we want to do by ourselves, having 100% of nothing. Sometimes it's better to have 10% of something big than 100% of nothing. And this is my own personal story that I've learned through a difficult path that this partnership is the best way for us to grow, to be sustainable, and to develop our business in the continent. Thank you very much.
So, a round of applause for our distinguished panelists. I think they've done a great job.
Thank you so much. I feel like we just took a master's course in energy. That was so intense. Thank you very, very much. Gentlemen and lady. So we'll quickly take a group photo.